Woody Allen has this recurrent theme of, worrying about the morality of murder. And this is something which has come up time and time again in his films. If my favourite Woody Allen film, actually it turns out it's your favourite Woody Allen film, Love and Death, although I thought you were just stealing my answer.
No.
There's a wonderful scene in Love and Death in which Boris is attempting to kill Napoleon. Remember this? And he says, I can. He's a breathing, living, sentient being, and he'll bleed all over the carpet. He says it in a Woody Allen voice as opposed to that. Mm-hmm. And this is something which has recurred throughout. I mean, most famously in Crimes and Misdemeanors, and then also in Match Point. Keeps coming back to this, to the existential concept of the perfect crime and murder. So in the case of Irrational Man, which stars Joaquin Phoenix, we're sort of back on home territory. Joaquin Phoenix plays this very dissolute professor who goes to college where Emma Stone turns out to be his student, and he has essentially run out of steam, run out of gas. He describes at the very beginning of it that he has reached an all-time low. But he sparks up a relationship with Emma Stone, which coincidentally leads on to the whole question of existential murder. Here's a clip from fairly early on in the film.
Hi, you wanted to see me?
Yes, your paper was quite good.
Really?
Yes. I read so many papers, and usually the students are merely paraphrasing what they've read, but I found your thinking fresh and well presented.
Oh, thank you. I'm flattered. I have to say, I was very influenced by your ideas on randomness and chance.
Oh. Well, the truth is, what I found most exciting was when you took issue with my ideas. When you disagree with me, your arguments were well-reasoned and original.
Am I blushing right now? That's a really big compliment. Thank you. I did actually find some parts of your book a little hard to follow, though, and I would love if you could explain some things to me.
Sure. Can we get out of here, though, before I die of suffocation?
So you kind of get from that obviously what's going to happen is that there's going to be some burgeoning relationship between the two of these. And meanwhile, Parker Posey, who plays a character who's much more the same age as Joaquin Phoenix, gets this, I think, rather thankless role as this sort of annoying, needy academic who sort of attaches themselves to Joaquin Phoenix's character. Anyway, they overhear in a cafe a conversation about how a woman is having a terrible time because a really, really bad judge is about to do something which will cause her family to be torn apart. And Joaquin Phoenix suddenly starts to wonder, well, what about, since I know nothing about this person and yet I can think that the world would be better without them, why don't I commit the perfect crime, the Hitchcockian perfect crime, the crime to which I have no connection? And then the film proceeds very much in that manner of kind of late period Woody Allen, which is browsing over material that he's done before, either in a funnier way, in the case of Love and Death, or in a more acute way, as in the case of Crimes and Misdemeanors, or even in a more sort of direct way, as in the case of Match Point. And you really get the sense, I mean, what I always sort of, I find myself asking, am I being harsh on this film because Woody Allen's back catalogue is so extraordinary that you don't expect anything less than really interesting? Or am I being harsh on it because it actually just feels a bit lazy? And the honest thing is that right from the use of the Ramsey Lewis trio as the in crowd, also Wade in the Water, which is just used over and over again, to the fact that most of these arguments, most of the philosophical arguments about the morality of murder, the morality of the ideal crime, guilt, crime, punishment, have been worked over so many times in so many more entertaining ways before. Secondly, the fact that it's, going back to that old chestnut of he's the slightly older college professor, she's the young student, she's infatuated with him, and he says, well, we can't possibly have a relationship, but it's not going to take a huge amount to figure out what happens. And thirdly, because it does that weird thing that when it works, when Woody Allen does tragedy well, it makes for something really quite extraordinary, whether it's the end of Annie Hall, which actually, of course, is redemptive, or it is the central thesis of Crimes and Misdemeanors, that famous image of Landau and Woody Allen sitting together, their heads tilted, contemplating the guilty or lack of guilt, existential world. Those things are done really well. In this case, when it actually starts being properly a crime thriller, not really a thriller, more of a sort of chamber piece, it doesn't seem to understand exactly what genre it wants to be in or doesn't want to be in. The music all the way through is perky and upbeat. And even when people are discussing, murder and death and poisoning, it keeps trying to remind us that actually what it's doing is vaguely comedic, but yet it's profound. It's not funny. I mean, there aren't jokes in it. And the whole thing just felt terribly lackluster. And as somebody who remains a Woody Allen fan, I mean, it's extraordinary. His output is literally one film a year, every year, year in, year out. He's not slowing up, And of course, he's got the Amazon deal when he's, he's making stuff for television. All that stuff is happening. I just wonder whether we could all have expected something more from this. And I didn't hate it. I just found it very, very ordinary and very, very lackluster. Perfectly decent performances. I mean, it's true that whenever anybody gets the call to work with Woody Allen, they obviously bring their A game, because it's, there's a story about Parker Posey being in tears. All that stuff's true, but the film itself just feels like, yeah, okay, put that in there and do that and thing, and then slap a bit of music on, and then it ends in this way, which is completely out of kilter. And I just left thinking, yeah, I have seen that movie at least 3 times before, and I do want something more from Woody Allen.